Hello and welcome back. Before we get to part 2, Real Talk, please allow us to fulfill our capitalistic duty and plug our Patreon, the Contrarian Supplements.
That's right. For a small fee, you too can help the Contrarians rage on.
We have tiers ranging from just $1 to $10. It all depends on how much content you can handle.
Starting at $1, it's the Travoltis tier, which gets you access to new bonus episodes focusing on a new movie every month, as well as access to the patron chat. Join other patrons in making fun of our opinions.
Moving up to $3 is the Winonis tier, which unlocks access to our pre-recording notes, our video reviews, and our spin-off show, Contrarians After Hours.
That's a more laid-back space where we talk about other things we've been watching, reading, playing, thinking about. Sometimes it's related to the movies being covered in the main feed, but it usually isn't.
If you want to be part of those patrons who help us shape the show by telling us which movies to tackle, that's when you sign up for the $5 tier, the Embries, and the $10, the Gads.
Finally, all supplement subscribers, regardless of the tier, get access to our archive of special patron projects. Head over to patreon.com/contrarianprime now to join.
Be sure to listen through the end of the episode to find out what's coming up to the Contrarian Supplements this month. Now, it's time for some Real Talk.
Farmer, I have this problem. This minor little problem, you see. I like to go out for an evening, with a guy, like a date. But I can't go out on a date because you have to be with me every minute. I mean, what if he wants to invite me up to his place afterwards? Are you gonna come too? So, the only thing I can figure is for you to take me out.
Yeah.
That's what I was wondering. I mean, what do you think? Only if you want to. Only if you want to.
All right, Julio, we're back. Doesn't get much more 90s than this, does it?
I mean, I feel like we've been saying that for 3 episodes in a row now.
It's just the list we've curated is so good.
It's true every time.
This is just a quintessential early 90s romance. I'm surprised I hadn't seen it up until this point in my life. I ended up renting this on Amazon. Where did you watch it?
The same. I rented it on Amazon. It was like 20 cents cheaper than renting it on YouTube. So I was like, sure.
Yeah. Man, tariffs,
It's in this economy, you got to take everything, every little saving.
Certainly a movie. I've used this phrase before when I was a kid. It was a movie I just thought was an adult movie. And I obviously don't mean that in the sense of porn, but I mean like that's a movie adults watch. And
I mean, you were not wrong.
I guess I didn't know it was rated R. And that makes sense. I mean, there's not much swearing, but there is like the borderline gratuitous violence at the end with those squibs that they equip to Portman. That's pretty entertaining. I also forgot to call out in Contrarian's Corner there that the guy who Clive is who he plays in the movie, the guy who is presenting alongside Whitney Houston.
Yes, the British guy, right?
Yeah, Nathaniel Parker is his name. He is the bad guy in Beverly Hills Ninja. Martin Tamley is his name. Tanley, excuse me, is his name in that movie. So I was like, and this would have been a couple years before, but he still kind of had the same hair. So I was like, it's the bad guy from Beverly Hills Ninja. It's the guy Haru has to stop. This isn't going to really play into the episode too much, but I did in my kind of research of this I vaguely remember this back in 2016. 2017, there was the All Def Movie Awards, which was an awards ceremony. It was created by Def Jam Records co-founder Russell Simmons, and it was in an attempt to honor black talent who was noticeably absent from the 2016 Academy Awards. So they had like this award show where Michael B. Jordan won for Creed, for example.
All right.
And for Best Actress, Sana Lathan won for The Perfect Guy. They gave Straight Outta Compton Best Picture, for example, that year. Beast of No Nation was almost nominated, which we did that movie. That didn't really get any traction with the Academy, if I remember correctly. And it's a rough movie, but fucking Idris Elba's chilling in it. But one of the things this award ceremony did was recognize movies of the past that, for whatever reason, were absent from, white dominated fields. Training Day is a bad example because that obviously got a lot of play, but like Friday, for example, and they had categories like most quoted movie. So it was a lot of tongue in cheek and having fun and whatnot. Coming to America is another example of a movie they threw in there. But one of the categories they had, which I had to do a little bit of digging to find more information about this, because it's listed on the Wikipedia page for the Bodyguard under the awards and recognitions. I got awards and nominations, but it didn't have like much detail on it. So the award was most helpful white person, and Kevin Costner was nominated for his role as Frank in The Bodyguard for the most helpful white person. His fellow nominees were Harrison Ford in 42, Sylvester Stallone in Creed, Sandra Bullock in The Blind Side, Michelle Pfeiffer in Dangerous Minds, and then the winner, which this popped me huge when I was able to track this down, Christoph Waltz won for Django Unchained. So I thought that was really funny. It just caught my eyes like, wait, what is this? Because again, that ceremony was hosted in 2017, 2016. So the date, I was like, wait, that doesn't match up. So when I finally got to like what the setup for the punchline was with that, it made me laugh. So before we get to the rest of the awards, both the honorable and dishonorable nominations this movie received, 38% on Rotten Tomatoes, Julio. It is a movie that, like I kind of jested about, even if it's not your kind of movie, it's a well-known, well-regarded. It made $400 million, and it's kind of this romantic standout of the 90s that, did have a bit of a mixed critical reception, both contemporarily and still to this day. I think a lot of people do believe it's swelled with melodrama, but you need that sometimes. But in regards to the positive, Julio, which quotes did you pull for us?
All right, the people that liked it. Fresh tomatoes from the Rotten Tomatoes website. Let's start with Peter Bradshaw from The Guardian. Says, an innocent popcorn pleasure, all the way up to that over-the-top scene on Oscar night. Is it innocent? I think that might be
no.
A little too much when it comes to the praise there. Fred Topple from We Live Entertainment says, a suspense classic that never lets up. I don't think this is suspenseful.
No, we're 0 for 2 here.
Yeah. James Crute from The Post, New Zealand, says, Houston is a revelation as a strong-willed, free-spirited, but lonely diva and single mother of one, more concerned for her 8-year-old son's safety than her own. So this is the first, and the next quote is also similar. Actually, let's go with the next quote so we can talk about it all together. Ann Cohen from Refinery 29 says, Houston's face as she loses herself in the melody out there on a quiet porch in the woods is a reminder of all she gave to this role and to this movie, and why it's always worth rewatching. So a lot of praise for Whitney Houston. I couldn't find a single quote that praised Kevin Costner. But I guess it is her movie more than it is his.
Yeah.
That's like, I think, the starting point, Alex. How do you feel about the Whitney Houston performance? Do you find it a revelation, or do you find it, kind of what you expected? You've lived your life knowing about this movie, almost knowing the story without having seen it. And then you watch the movie and it's like exactly what you thought it was going to be as far as that performance. Or was it, better than you could have expected? Was it not as good as you expected?
It's kind of funny you ask it that way because I think she has moments in this where, I mean, again, people don't look like Whitney Houston. She is distractingly beautiful. But there are, I should say, these moments of like genuine, like, oh, I was talking about the Julia Roberts thing of she's not my favorite actress, but she has moments where there's just like a look or a way a line is read that it's like, yeah, that's a star. There's millions of people in the world that can't do just that one little thing that she just did. But also like Whitney Houston's delivery in the morning after coitus, I found to be like high school drama class reading. So it's strange because the first part where they meet, the way she kind of looks at him and kind of has a couple smart ass lines, I was like, oh, hold on. Because I just always assumed it was going to be, you know, not great. And I think overall her performance for someone who, you know, didn't dedicate their life to acting, it's good. It's better than, you know, what I can do in that role. And she has moments of promise in this is what I should say. But there are moments of like, yes, this is someone who's a talented person, but acting isn't necessarily their lead trait. But all that being said, it's not Britney Spears and Crossroads or some of the other movies, you know, that we've done that have a similar gimmick, I guess you would say, to it. I think we can agree this movie's better than Crossroads with Britney Spears.
I don't know, man. I think they have their strengths and they have their weaknesses.
I'm sorry, this is my fault.
Don't apologize, for God's sake. I mean, just tell me what I did. I'm a big girl.
You didn't do anything.
So as you can see, I'm like fleshing this out in real time because my thought was she has moments. There's moments where she's bad. And then there's also like these small like glints of, oh, no, that was good.
But would you, I mean, just because you brought up Britney Spears, and I was thinking about that because I was trying to go over movies that we've done on the show that could be compared to. My recollection is that Britney Spears in Crossroads is, I mean, she's only being asked to be Britney Spears, so it's almost unfair, right? But at the same time, so was Ronda Rousey in the Entourage movie.
Well, hold on.
She blew it. So I think, I seem to remember that Britney Spears was not a problem in Crossroads. She was actually just pretty winsome, right? And whenever she had to perform, she performed well, which is exactly what Whitney Houston does here. Anytime that she gets a musical number, I think she's amazing. And then I think the difference is that as ridiculous as the script in Crossroads is, they're not asking the characters to take it seriously. Well, I take that back. There are some really serious stuff that happens in that movie. I just remembered. So maybe they're on the same level. Because that's my problem here. I think that if the performance from Whitney Houston and the movie, they were just supposed to be campy the way that Crossroads is 90% of the time, I think that you could compare them and say they're on the same level. But the problem is that there's some really dramatic moments here where I feel a little bit what you were saying, that Whitney Houston is not quite there. And I honestly don't even think that it's her fault. I just think that the screenplay has designed a very unlikable character. And so it's such a struggle, I think, for her to, at least when I was watching the movie, she just couldn't get me to be on her side ever. Did you have the problem, or were you just okay with her character?
I think I wasn't really gunning for sides. I was just kind of letting this movie happen to me. Its tone is pretty quickly understandable. I'm probably being nicer to Whitney Houston, having just, you know, it was Friday the 13th, and I watched Freddy vs. Jason again, and Kelly Rowland in that movie is so bad that pretty much anything would have been an improvement off of that. So I'm going to probably be a bit nicer to Whitney here than you might be. But yeah, I wasn't really taking sides. I guess that's the point. Nothing in this movie compelled me to the point where I wanted. I didn't side with one character's virtue.
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily that I wanted to take sides, but I think that if the movie wants me to buy that Kevin Costner is not going to walk out on this assignment, and I pointed it out in Contreras Corner because it was just something that I was thinking about. I was like, why is he there? He doesn't need the money. And yes, I made the joke in Contreras Corner that you can tell that he's just staying there because he finds her attractive, but I don't think that's it either, right? Like seriously, I don't think that that's what the movie's telling you. What is the movie telling you? That he has this compulsion to do good, that you know, he knows that she needs somebody, a man of his talents, so that's why he stays. Not because he's going to make money off of it, and not because he finds her pleasant to be around. I mean, certainly not during the first 40 minutes of the movie or so. And even worse when you consider the people that she's surrounded by. So why is he there? And of course, the answer should be, oh, because she may be a pain in the ass, but she's still somebody that is somewhat charming. And that was the thing. Like, I'm sure that Whitney Houston was charming in real life, but in this movie, when they make her be unlikable, it's almost like she's irredeemable. And so I was like, dude, just get out of here. Run. Why are you putting up with this shit? She doesn't want your expertise. She doesn't follow the rules. She constantly does the opposite of what you want. Why is Kevin Costner there? And so that was constantly on my mind, right? Me thinking, well, if the performance was a little more charming, if I was a little more taken by her, I would be like, yeah, I get it, man. I would stick around too, because you want to give her a chance to come around. But I was not there. So it was, that part was kind of frustrating. So I would say half the movie, they're butting heads, and the other half of the movie, they're in agreement. So whenever they were in agreement, I was like, all right, I can roll with this. Whenever they were butting heads, I was like, get the fuck out of there, Kevin. You can do better.
What do you make of his tortured past?
I mean, I guess.
Again, I use the word melodrama to describe like this, and it's obviously what it is. If I wanted to be polite to the both characters in this movie, you can be famous and not understand if you're insulated so much, I don't think you understand the reach you have and also the dangers that come along with that. So, also Whitney Houston or Rachel Marin, is that her name in the movie? Wasn't really smartened up to a lot of the stuff going on. So I can sympathize with her there. And then, as much as Kevin Costner does do the war vet acting of staring longingly out a window, thinking about, what went wrong. That's a pretty good one, man. Of like, it's a situation that literally no one can like put themselves in. So you're just like, man, that would fuck with your head. You're protecting the president. The one day he took off for your mom's funeral, like someone tried to kill him. Like, so, I think the backstory they provide for him is it's kind of foolproof, but Costner's definitely hamming it up here, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, but he's still within the Costner range. So that was kind of like a single track corner. That is exactly what I expected from Costner. If he had been a wacky bodyguard, because here's the other version of the movie, the one that I was making in my head. Whenever I got frustrated, I was like, how this would work? It would work if he was broke. He is broke, and that's why he takes a job. And he has to put up with everything because he needs to pay his mortgage, needs to pay child support, whatever. And he can still be Kevin Costner the way he is in the movie, right? Where he's just quiet and he puts up with everything. And every now and then he'll have an outburst of violence, whether it's verbal or physical. But now I can buy what the desperation. He's doing it out of desperation, not out of whatever the fuck. I mean, okay, are you telling me that you can draw a straight line from I couldn't save Reagan, or I couldn't protect Reagan that day when he got shot, therefore now I must protect anybody who needs protecting that I'm aware of? Is that what drives him to stick around with Whitney Houston?
I don't know. That's it's the whole thing of, because he also has the it's my last day of work attitude about him, where he doesn't want to take this job and I'll do it through this amount of time, but then when he's on the job he takes it so seriously. I got involved with my client. It makes one wonder, because he's talking about like he's been in that situation before. So did he like fuck Reagan? Did he get like in a?
I almost made that joke. Yeah, him and Reagan had their one night, and then they broke it off. He was like, "This is unprofessional."
Morning, Reagan told him, "Well,"
and then the next day he got shot. That's why it's eating at him. Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with the Costner character, backstory or no backstory. I mean, it's kind of like I buy that. I buy that he would, he can be a man that lives by this code, and then, man, he can't resist. Right? Whitney Houston is pretty charming when she wants to be in this movie. And so when she hones in on him, asks him out, takes him to the movies, takes him out dancing, pretty much tells him, I'm in if you're in, then of course he's not going to resist. And then for him to feel bad about it the next day, because he's right. Again, forget about the Reagan backstory. It compromises your judgment if you're sleeping with your client in this situation, probably in most situations, right? So it makes sense that he would be just resistant to the idea. And it makes sense for her to be offended by it. But the problem is, like you called it out, like the performance is not there. So it feels really stilted whenever they argue. And I think that she comes across as more childish, more petulant than she needs to be. And then, I turn on her.
Well, you can live with it or you can fire me.
But I can't fuck you.
And fucking Bill Cobbs, I mean, he's the voice of reason here. And that's the one person I was feeling for. I was like, man, this poor guy's trying to keep everything together and nobody follows his advice. Nobody follows his directions.
Yeah, her entourage varies in turn. That Psy guy is the fucking worst. I was being a bit polite and withholding in Contrarian's corner. It is so obvious from the second her sister hits the screen that she's going to do something bad. Just kind of like lurking in the shadows, and like literally every like shot of her lingers just a bit too long. It's like, what is she up to?
I thought about it, but then I was like, but it would be too ridiculous for them to like, what is the explanation if it's a sister? And it was exactly what I thought they wouldn't do. Oh, she hired somebody?
Well, and then also, to the actress's credit, what's her name here? Nikki. Michelle Lamar Richards. She's just in the background, in the shadows the whole time, and only gets like 2 scenes. But when she's called upon, she does a pretty good job of delivering both of those scenes. Yeah. So good on her. I did mention some dishonorable nominations this movie had received, and at the 93 Golden Raspberry Awards, celebrating the worst of 1992, The Bodyguard racked up the most nominations. Worst picture, worst actor, worst actress, worst screenplay, worst new star, and worst original song. It won none of them, though. Picture went to Shining Through. Guess I'm not familiar with that. Mike Douglas, Melanie Griffith, Liam Neeson.
What?
Jolie Richardson. It's got a higher rating on Rotten Tomatoes than this does.
Well, Neeson had Schindler's List the following year, so that was it. That was his last low-key movie.
Costner lost worst actor to Sylvester Stallone for Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. Melanie Griffith and Shining Through beat out Whitney Houston. See, here's where this is bullshit. In the worst supporting actor, they have Danny DeVito for Batman Returns in there.
What?
Fuck off.
Man, McDonald's bought that ceremony. Worst
screenplay, of course, Lawrence Kasdan was safe as Stop or My Mom Will Shoot took that home. And worst new star. See, this stuff does make me laugh from time to time when we look back on these Golden Raspberry nominations. So the worst new star got 2 nominations for that. Whitney Houston and Kevin Costner's Crew Cut. But Julio, what is the reason for the season? It's the MTV Movie Awards, after all. This one does not look like one we've talked about yet. The 96 one we've talked about quite a bit, but this was on Tuesday, June 8th of 1993 from Burbank, California, hosted by Eddie Murphy.
Oh, I think this is the same as The Fugitive, isn't it? Unless Eddie hosted twice.
No, you might be right. Okay, we talked about it briefly for My Cousin Vinny, because Marissa Tomei, this is the year she won Breakthrough Performance.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, not The Fugitive year. But anyway, The Bodyguard. Nominations included Best Movie, Male Performance, Desirable Male, Female Performance, Breakthrough Performance, which of course we know who took that home, Best On-Screen Duo, and Best Song from a Movie, I Will Always Love You. That is the one bucket of golden popcorn that they took home this year. Best Movie went to A Few Good Men, beating out The Bodyguard, Malcolm X, Basic Instinct, and Aladdin.
There's always one category at least that has the one nominee that came out of nowhere.
It's so good. Best Male Performance, Denzel took that home for Malcolm X, beating out Kevin Costner. Tom Cruise for A Few Good Men, Mike Douglas for Basic Instinct, and Jack Nicholson for A Few Good Men. Whitney nominated for Best Female Performance, nominated alongside Demi Moore for A Few Good Men, Whoopi Goldberg for Sister Act, Gina Davis for A League of Their Own. All of these women, however, lost out to Sharon Stone for Basic Instinct.
Fair.
Okay, we did talk about this specifically because I brought this up on the My Cousin Vinny episode. Whitney Houston won for Best Song for I Will Always Love You, beating out End of the Road by Boyz II Men, It's Probably Me by Sting and Eric Clapton, A Whole New World from Peabo Bryson and Regina Bell, and Wood by Alice in Chains, because that song fucking rules.
Not as much as I Will Always Love You, though.
It's hard to say, you know?
Which one gets more play at weddings?
Yes, okay. Case closed. Most Desirable Male, Kevin Costner for The Bodyguard, Tom Cruise for A Few Good Men, Mel Gibson for Lethal Weapon 3, Jean-Claude Van Damme for Nowhere to Run, all losing out to Christian Slater for Untamed Heart.
Come on.
I know. And that's for, what's it, Best On-Screen Duo. Whitney and Kevin were nominated alongside Woody Harrelson and Wesley Snipes for White Man Can't Jump, Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman for Far and Away, Sharon Stone and Mike Douglas for Basic Instinct. These 4 duos lost out to Mel Gibson and Danny Glover for Lethal Weapon 3. And man, yeah, we talked about this with my cousin Vinny. This is like a fucking who's who of the breakthrough performance. Marissa Tomei, of course, won. The other nominees were Whitney Houston for The Bodyguard, Kathy Najimy for Sister Act, Halle Berry for Boomerang, and Rosie O'Donnell for League of Their Own. That was a loaded category. Of all the things we've discussed, jokes aside and whatnot, I think that's the most fascinating. And the Lifetime Achievement Award went to the Three Stooges,
who made a cameo when Portman poked the eye out.
The 1992 Academy Awards, which has been talked about in detail on the show several times, be it Bram Stoker's Dracula, Aladdin, or of course Unforgiven, which we recently covered.
The Metallica Clint Eastwood collaboration.
There you go. The Bodyguard saw 2 nominations in the Best Original Song category, Run to You and I Have Nothing, both nominated alongside Beautiful Maria of My Soul from The Mambo King, Friend Like Me from Aladdin, but of course losing out to, you can't argue with this shit, A Whole New World from Aladdin, won Best Original Song that year. So it was a movie that was definitely present in a lot of awards discussions. And I mean, the shit we talked about in the first, in the opening of Contrarian's Corner about the song and how you couldn't escape it. Billboard later listed Houston's performance in the film as the 27th best performance of a musician in a box office film. The film and soundtrack cemented Houston's status as a pop culture icon, which I believe is certainly fair. I mentioned this a bit earlier, but the budget, $25 million. I mentioned the box office return that was over $400 million. So a bit of a sensation this was. Julio, do you have a favorite Whitney Houston song?
The only one I know is I Will Always Love You. I'm sure I've heard the other ones, but I couldn't pick them. My Whitney Houston knowledge is minimal, and it's increased exponentially tonight after watching this movie, because now I can actually say that I've watched what might be her most popular work, at least among movie people. Would you say that this is the most iconic Whitney Houston piece of work?
I guess is like an overall piece of media. I mean, she's got some fucking banger tracks, and she had been around for years prior to this. But yeah, I can't. This song has to be her defining legacy. My favorite Whitney Houston song is I Want to Dance with Somebody, by the way. That song is a fucking banger. Every time it comes on, it gets the whole playthrough every time. Yeah, I was trying to get cute and overthink it, but yeah, this would have to be just due to the overwhelming global popularity of the song from this. This has to be what people know her for.
I mean, that's not a bad thing.
Nope.
Definitely. I think that everybody was happy coming out of this. I would hope everybody was happy. Kasdan, Jackson, Costner, Houston, maybe even Starr and Cobbs. Hopefully they get some residuals coming out of there. I think it's funny that it basically took over the MTV Movie Awards and the Razzies, but hardly got any wins in between both of them. I mean, it just shows you that the Razzies will always troll, for the most part, what's popular, and the MTV Movie Awards will celebrate what's popular. So it makes sense that they will show up on both lists. Do you agree, though, Alex? Which one do you side with? You're a critic in 1992, and you have to place The Bodyguard either to be honored at the MTV Movie Awards or to be made fun of at the Razzies. You can't just leave it in limbo.
Definitely, the Razzies have never been. There's exceptions. There's times where Halle Berry showed up to accept hers, and the infamous Tom Green acceptance speech. But those aren't cultural happenings the way these MTV award shows were. So yeah, I'd rather be fucking Burbank, California, and Eddie Murphy talking shit about my movie in his monologue or something.
Okay, but I'm not saying you as a producer of the movie. I'm saying you as a critic. In 1992, so you can't.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you can't let like the legacy cloud your judgment. You're just somebody that went to see the movie in 1992 and came out of it, and now you're like, all right, where do you put it? Do you put it with the Razzies or do you put it with the MTV Movie Awards? You don't know that it's going to, all these years later, it's going to still be talked about.
I would have to say the MTV Movie Awards. Because if I'm up to speed on all these movies here that are like Stop or My Mom Will Shoot, that no, this is not a movie that belongs to be mentioned alongside that.
So it deserves to be mentioned alongside A Few Good Men and Aladdin?
Well, I don't know about that, but that's the hand that's dealt when you fuck with the MTV Movie Awards. That's
I
never know what you're gonna get.
Yeah, I lean towards the Razzies, even though that feels too cruel, just because they're somewhat mean spirited. So I mean, obviously, if there was a nicer version of that, then that's what I would go with. But I just don't think, like, I don't resent the movie for its success. I think it's pretty awesome that it found an audience. And I think, like you said,
it is a perfect crowd pleaser, man.
Exactly. It knows who it's for and it delivers for that audience. I am not part of that audience. So of course that's a big part of the problem. And the problem is mine. Like we said in Concerns Corner and even here in Real Talk, like the people that went to see it, they probably got exactly what they wanted, supersized, right? Because they got the big kiss at the end even. It's just the way it has to be. My notes have it, and I think I mentioned it in the previous segment, that this is like a date movie for grown-ups. And that's really what I've always thought it was, just because I remember my parents seeing it. And I mean, it's not like they were giving it crazy praise. Like my dad, I remember when he watched Dead Poets Society, that was a movie that he would bring it up constantly and talk about how awesome it was. I still haven't seen it, but I remember him talking about it, and then at some point telling me something like, well, you can't watch it yet because you need to be a little older to really appreciate it. That was not the case with The Bodyguard. With The Bodyguard, I just remember them renting it, watching it, and then talking about it like it was a good movie, which I think that was probably the feeling for most people that watched it. They went to watch a romantic thriller suspense movie, and they got it, and they were like, when it was over, they were like, yeah, that was great. Didn't change my life. I'm not going to be quoting it, but the guy and the girl, they got together a couple of times, and that was exciting. So, I mean, I get it. I know that was the goal. It kind of blows my mind that this was written by Lawrence Kasdan.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah, I'm not like a Lawrence Kasdan completist, right? Like I can't tell you that this is unlike anything else he ever did before, but it is certainly unlike anything else that I've watched that he wrote or directed. Because I've seen, I watched Body Heat, all his Star Wars work, the Indiana Jones that he did. There's a couple other movies that he's written. When I was looking through his filmography, I was like, he's, not to sound elitist, but, he is a serious writer, a serious filmmaker. This kind of stuff, as crowd-pleasing, as effective as it is, it kind of feels like it's beneath him. But then you think about the massive paycheck he must have gotten from it. And like, sure.
Yeah.
Good job, Kasdan. That's going to finance the next 3 or 4 projects. So good on him. But still, it's just weird. You read through his filmography and this one kind of sticks out.
It is an outlier, I would say. I did want to circle back. I called this out in Contrarian's Corner. The plot point of to protect them, he takes them to his dad's home. I was like, what the fuck is this plan? It's not like taking them out of town or, even to like a bunker of some sort. Just immediately puts his dad in the line of danger, in the line of fire nearly. And it's also accented by the only time Kevin Costner laughs in this movie. Yes. And it's the psychotic serial killer laugh that he has.
Yeah. The chess game. Yeah. I almost made a note of that because I was like, that's why he's so serious all the time. So it really hits you when he smiles or laughs. Because he smiles like briefly and very slightly when he's on a date with Whitney Houston. Mm-hmm. He makes like a joke and then he smirks. Yeah, that was weird. I figured that it was going to basically, that was going to be the moment where it was going to be confirmed that it was someone on the inside, right? They go somewhere where there's no way they could be followed, and yet the killer shows up. That means that somebody's tipping him off. And I know it's pretty obvious that it was the sister, which is why I thought that maybe it wouldn't be the sister. And I had money, not a huge amount of money, but I had some money on the driver. What's his name? Henry?
Yes. Yeah. He when he was introduced, he was a bit too aloof, it seemed.
Yeah, and then Costner kind of takes him under his wing, and he seems like such a good guy that it wouldn't have surprised me if the big twist was that he was obsessed with her, and that's why, that they couldn't escape it. Psy would have been too obvious, and then Bill Cobbs is a saint, so no way. Yeah, look, the one scene that I think works, I hope that it's the way it was intended. If I'm just reading too much, then, well, it still worked. But what I called out in Concerns Corner, when the sister is singing and then Whitney Houston comes out and starts singing with her and takes over the song. I mean, that is, I'm not going to say it's subtle, but I think it's a pretty cool way of showing what the dynamic is there in that relationship. And that makes a lot of sense once you find out that she was the one that kind of ordered a hit on her sister. It was like, yeah, because can get away from her.
The letters came first. I don't know who's writing the letters. Shit, they're reading my mind. Those are my thoughts. I hate her.
So did you actively dislike this movie, or is it just kind of like whatever?
I don't know that I disliked the movie. I disliked watching it. Is that different? No, because that's something I would say about if you made me watch Marvel movies by and large for this. Of what's the Jake Gyllenhaal Spider-Man? Far From Home.
Yeah, I did not like watching that movie, but obviously it's not a bad movie because a lot of people like it.
Well, I think I think this is a bad movie. And I also can acknowledge that people like it. You can, bad movies can be really popular and can be effective, but I don't think
I'm aware.
Yeah, well, because I don't think that the performance from Whitney Houston is there. I don't think that the story is there, but I also understand that it doesn't matter. When you're making this type of movie, it doesn't matter. What matters is hitting the big things. You have to get the song, which they did. You have to get the big romantic moments, and they have enough chemistry, I think, Costner and Houston, to where that part works. And then you have to get a little bit of action, which is good. Costner can handle the action. And you got to get the cheesy moments of redemption for some characters. So, Kazan, yes, I can say this is beneath him, but that also means that he knows kind of how to write this type of movie in his sleep. He's like, oh yeah, this is the formula. And then we just guzzy it up. So, but it was just mostly kind of a frustrating experience because I was not enjoying it, the way that the movie is designed to be enjoyed. And I did write at some point, if I didn't, I definitely thought it. I was like, this is going to sweep, or potentially will sweep at the Embry's with the Hueys, right? Because I could just give it to almost everybody involved if I wanted to. I'm sure that, we have a few months to go before we get there. And once I start reviewing what we've done in the past, there might be other contenders. But right now, this was one where it just wasn't clicking with me the way it needed to click. And it's long, man. It's long. You kind of alluded to it in Concerns Corner. Did you start to feel the length by the time that we got to the Oscars?
Yeah, it was. That's when I did the little gimmick of I hit the remote to see how much time was left. I was like, dude, there's fucking 35 minutes left in this movie. And as much as I enjoy the redemption arc of Mike Starr and the budding bromance with he and Kevin Costner, it's what I said in Contrarian's Corner. It's this series of things that keep happening just to elongate the scene and to potentially build tension and suspense, and it's all very silly, but it's capped off with some hilariously explosive squibs, so that made it all worth it.
I think she didn't need to be a presenter and be a nominee.
No, not at all. What should have happened was she took her seat and then got super paranoid sitting there and then hit the back and then had that. You would have cut 10 minutes off easily with that.
Yeah, I agree. And maybe you need the trip to Alaska, or wherever it is they go see the dad. You didn't need that to be so long. because there's so much time devoted to bonding, right? Like they have dinner, they play chess, and the sister hits on Costner. I mean, it's a whole thing. I thought that was going to be our final set of the movie. I was like, once we got to Alaska, I was like, all right, I guess this is where they wrap it up. We forget about the Oscars. This is just going to be like Assault on Precinct 13 or something, like Costner and Whitney Houston and the family under siege in that cabin or whatever they are. But no, they went past that sequence and moved on to the next thing. So yeah, it felt long, but I can appreciate the legacy. Again, I just go back to it. And how can you argue against the success of I Will Always Love You? I mean, that is just, I guess there have to be other instances of movies that are lifted by one element that becomes part of pop culture, even though the movie itself is not that great. You know what I mean?
Oh, well, you had me until you said the movie itself's not that great. And then I was going to say, yes, it's called My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion.
Well, that's just one of the elements. I think that there's, and listeners know my feelings about Titanic, but there's a lot more going on there beyond the song.
The Sound of Silence by Simon and Garfunkel from The Graduate's one that I thought of.
Yeah, but okay, The Graduate is...
Oh, but your argument is that the movie's not great.
Right.
Okay, I see. I'm sorry.
I mean, there have to be, because that just happens,
It's not one of your top 10 movies of all time, so you could maybe say that Saturday Night Fever catapulted the Bee Gees into like a different realm of superstardom.
But if you took that Bee Gees song out of the...
Songs,
right, but Staying Alive is the one that people think about when they think of Saturday Night Live, right?
Fucking normies. We all know it's more than a woman.
You remove the soundtrack, you put a different band there with just serviceable music.
It's not the same.
But would you still consider it a great movie? Do you think it would still be transcendental?
I don't know. That's a good one, man.
But that's the thing, right?
Okay. I got one for you. That song Maniac. Flashdance is a stupid movie. And that song, you know what I'm talking about? That song lives.
Tommy Boy.
Yeah, exactly. It's parodied in movies that are 30 years old. And we recently, it's important to call this out, we recently had a very good discussion on the merit of Batman Forever and also how its legacy has shifted greatly over the past 30 years. But it takes about 30 seconds of conversation about that movie before Seal's Kiss from a Rose comes up. So that's one.
Yes, but that's a movie that stands on its own without the songs. Like you could take Kiss from a Rose out of the Batman Forever soundtrack, and people are still going to be talking about it, about the movie all these years later. I guess my argument is that if you took I Will Always Love You, the Whitney Houston version, out of the Bodyguard, there's a good chance that it doesn't survive. The movie itself doesn't survive the way it has survived all these years. Would you agree with that, or am I shortchanging the movie?
No, that's absolutely correct.
Well, I rest my case.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out if I could, proffer a strong argument. If you just Google songs known from movies, the first thing that comes up is I Will Always Love You from the Bodyguard original soundtrack.
Wow, she beat Celine Dion.
Yeah, that should really stress it. As we wind down here, Julio, you will not be pleased, nor will you probably care to know. As soon as The Bodyguard was over, the first thing I did before I came and set up to record was went and rewatched the ending to This Is the End. That is one of the last theater memories I have of being in an auditorium with like a solid amount of people. And do you even know what I'm referring to when they played I Will Always Love You at the end of that?
No, because I still haven't seen that movie. And also, I know you brought it up before, so I mean, I know it happens.
I thought you saw it. You watched some of it, right? Because you had like things that you could cite of just how much it annoyed you.
Yeah, I watched parts of it, either from walking into the theater when it was playing, and then later I've caught it on,
And again, I'm never going to argue that your reasons for not liking it are invalid, because there's a lot of that. It is.
I might like it, when I finally sit down and watch it beginning to end. I like the interview, so really anything goes.
Oh, that's true. That changed the game. So
but
anyway,
I thought that before you told me about this, I always thought that they closed with the Backstreet Boys song.
That's what leads into the credits, and that's like the kind of fun thing right at the very, very, very end. The ending of the movie, though, is the rapture's going on, and all their friends have gone to heaven, and Jay Baruchel and Seth Rogen are stuck on Earth as like it's all coming down. And there's this giant fucking like demon like killing everybody and burning all the cities down. And they have like this heart to heart of, because they like are really pithy in the movie, and they just talk to each and they're like, I'm so sorry that everything got so fucked with us as friends. It's like, I love you, man. I always will. And if we're going to die, you know, we'll die together. And they like hug. And then so Jay Baruchel begins to be summoned to heaven. Like he's getting pulled up, and then he just grabs Seth Rogen's hand and it's taking him up. But then before he actually gets to heaven, the line starts breaking because Seth Rogen's weighing him down. And then it's so like perfectly shot. And so like Seth Rogen realizes what's happening, and he looks down, and then he looks back up at Jay Baruchel, and you just like kind of hear the wind blowing, and it's kind of silent, and then you just hear and start, and Seth Rogen's like, I'm gonna let go, man. I'm not gonna weigh you down anymore. And he's like, I love you, and then he lets go, and he starts to like fall to his perceived death. And right before like this demon like eats him, he gets beaconed up right as it's kicking into the, you know, Whitney Houston just like going fucking all for it. Ah! And like they're just like celebrating together as it plays. And like that was one of the last theater memories I have of being like in a full theater and people like as a group just laughing at the moment. And the reason that's so funny is because of how penetrative that song has been into pop culture, and to use it in such a ridiculous fashion, everyone gets that joke immediately. And so, yeah, that movie's very egotistical and in love with itself, but that part always makes me laugh so fucking hard. So much so that I was laughing to the point of nearly being in tears watching it, that I rewound it and watched it again and then came in here to set up.
Yeah, well, let's get this over with, okay? Give me a kiss.
What's your score, man?
Oh, man, I don't know. I just know I don't like it. I was trying to not think about the score because I was trying to be open-minded. I was hoping that this conversation would make me appreciate stuff that I somehow had underappreciated while watching it, but I think it's still... I'll tell you this. At least I'm breaking my streak of I don't know how many 3.5s in a row. This one is considerably lower. I'm going to say 1.5, because that is a fair assessment of my experience watching it. That doesn't mean, I will say this, that doesn't mean that any of you listening may dislike it, because you may be a little more like Alex and really appreciate this type of genre and what it's doing well, because it's doing it well. But I can't not overanalyze it, I guess. So 1.5 stars for me, Alex. What's your score?
C+. For what this dude, and all bullshit aside, that is why we make movies. At the end where the fucking plane stops and she runs and goes into his arms and stuff. We already covered this too. It helps that they don't actually end up together, but they have that last moment, because that's I'm not going to say this movie's close to real life, but that the idea of that is closer to real life than if they had, you know, oh, I'm going to be your dad now, you know, that type of shit. So C+. I enjoyed my first viewing of it. I cannot say I'm going to run back to watching this ever again, but, you know, rainy day, it's on cable, who knows. And I'll at least, if I can timestamp where I'm at in the movie, I'll hang around for the Mike Starr look of approval.
Yes.
And, you know,
could you have done without the freeze frame at the end?
yeah. My last note says freeze frame in all caps. Yeah, that was... as was the style at the time, I guess is what I'll say.
Yeah, but some of those survive the passage of time, and sometimes, most of the time, I think they don't. One day when we have time, Alex, we should make a list of, I don't know, like the top 5 freeze frames that are still effective today, and just see where we land. Because I kind of get, now whenever it happens at the end of the movie, I just laugh.
That's because movies like Rocky 3 and, is it Rocky 3?
Tango and Cash.
Tango and Cash, like, yeah, it's funny because there's been so many movies that have done it to like what?
Breakfast Club.
Oh,
that
that's
one
so
still
good
works.
though. Yeah, Breakfast Club's great. When I graduated high school, I just stopped in the middle of walking and just posed like that for like 3 seconds.
Did you sing the song?
Probably in my head.
All right. Well, that was The Bodyguard. Alex, I think you know what's coming up next.
Why don't you unveil it onto the listening public, Julio?
Well, we're talking about the 90s. We're talking about the MTV Movie Award winners and nominees. And our next episode is going to be the first episode of July. So, of course, we have to do an episode on Independence Day, ID4.
Damn right.
Yeah, it's just, we don't need to say anything
Welcome
else.
to Earth.
Yes. I don't remember. Is it fresh or rotten? Because it could go either way.
It's got to be rotten, but I don't know by how much.
I got it here. 68%.
Oh, no, it's not. Yeah, that's fresh.
Fresh. Okay, so tune in next episode to hear us talk trash about Independence Day.
Man, I have most of that thing memorized. I might do the whole Bill Pullman rally speech. $817 million. God, fuck yeah. I'm fired up. I am unapologetic in my love of Independence Day.
Yeah, the goal, don't know if we're going to make it, but the goal, guys, is to have it published a little early so you can actually listen to it on Independence Day. We're going to try, but no promises because, we're pretty busy here at the Contrarians headquarters, but we'll do what we can. If not, you'll have it that week. You can do it after when you're reminiscing about all the fun you had on Independence Day. But that's coming up next on the Summer of the MTV Bangers. Then on our Patreon channel, our bonus episode is still Les Samurai, which might be on the feed by now. That's demanded by Jason Nerdrovert. And then on our QVRs, you, Alex, are doing the movie I, the Executioner, and I am doing the movie Last Bullet, both demanded by patron Brandon Curtis. And then no after hours tied to this episode because we have something else that's cooking, and we'll have an official announcement on the main feed sometime soon. But it's going to be something that's going to be on the main feed, but it's going to be, obviously, I think it's going to please both patrons and non-patrons alike. I'll just say that we're having a special side project that it's going to aim to boost empathy in the world because, we try to do what we can here, the Contrarians, to make the world a better place. And things are pretty ugly here on our country of origin. And you probably know that, even if you don't pay that much attention to the news, because it's inescapable how bad it's getting over here. So, and if you don't think it's getting bad, you probably don't listen to this show. So I know exactly who I'm talking to. So Don't worry. Alex and I are joining forces to do one more thing to hopefully brighten up your day. So that's all I'm going to say here. But like I said, keep an eye out for the announcement coming soon. So that's it. If you want to check out our Patreon, it's patreon.com/Contrarian Prime. Now we can go, Alex.
Let's do it. Welcome to our end credits.
Or as we usually call them, our perennial plugs.
We start off by giving thanks to the Festive Years who provide our opening and closing tracks. They kick us off with Last Stand and take us home with Summer of 99. Be sure to head over to thefestiveyears.com for any and all Festive Years needs.
Our friend and fellow podcaster Hans Rothgieser is the man behind our logo and all the art you see related to our show. Reach out to him and let him know how much you like that little tomato. His email address is mildemonios@hotmail.com and his website is mildemonios.pe. That's MILDEMONIOS. Hans, thank you for all your support.
For those interested in the regularly absurd world of professional wrestling, Joe and the boys over at latenightgrin.com have you covered. Tell them the Contrarians sent you.
And we like to close with special thanks to our social media team of Zoe Perez and Corey Ari. Each of the social media accounts we mentioned in the introduction look as good as they do because of their work.
So that'll do it for this episode of The Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong, and we will catch you next time.
Just for old time's sake, I really don't care who you see and how much money